Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to another episode of the OpenShift Container Storage Office Hours. Today we're going to be talking about the Multicloud Object Gateway, and Chris Bloom is not here today. We are joined by the one and only Michelle DiPalma. She's going to be showing us through the Multicloud Object Gateway today, and I'm very happy to have somebody other than Chris talking about storage on the channel. So thank you very much for joining us.
You're welcome. What do you mean you don't want to talk to Chris? Chris is awesome.
I like talking to Chris. He's a great person. He's a wonderful storage magician, literally. When I think of my skills versus his, and you are too, because I'm the storage idiot on this show.
Nice.
So,
did you get tired of Seth? Is that what happened? You got tired of Seth? You want to talk?
No, I like Seth. And here's the thing: like way earlier in my career, right? Like I worked with a literal physicist that maintained storage. Like we worked at two different jobs together, and he was the storage expert. He was a physicist, and I was like, if you're a physicist and you have to, that's what it takes to do storage real good, that ain't for me, right? So
good point. Maybe that's true. It's funny, I have a double major in computer science and physics, so maybe there's something.
Well, there you go. That. See, right? Like that. See, this is why I am the storage idiot. I didn't take physics, right? But it is. I mean, it literally is like a matter of space and literal matter on a platter. I'm not doing this rhyming intentionally, but yeah, it's really does involve physics. So it's an interesting thing, but it wasn't my thing, if that makes sense.
Okay, so hang on. So OCS makes it easier.
Yeah,
like,
no, I know.
Yeah, it really does. And I would even say in my career, there were times I was like, oh, are we going down the Ceph route? And then I started with Red Hat in July, and since then I've been like, why didn't we just do OCS?
That's exactly the same take I've used on my cluster here at the house. Is let's just put OCS on it, all right? Like why not? It has all the bells and whistles that you could possibly need for storage on your clusters. So yeah, it's a super awesome product.
So I was going to tell you that. I was going to say within the team. I was joking with my team about becoming object chick and getting my object powers on. My object powers are not fully baked, so I can talk about certain things, and I'm definitely very deep into the multi-cloud object gateway space. Mm-hmm. But as my general object store powers are still maturing. I'll put it that way. They're still cooking.
Fair enough.
Fair enough. And I was just going to say I actually come from I worked almost exclusively in financial services, and I come from a very I'm a generalist. I come from like Unix SA, and then as you know, all of that evolves into Kubernetes, right? So it's right. Like 6 years ago, it's all Docker and LXC and all this other stuff, and then right into Kubernetes and then right into OpenShift. So that, but as the generalist, what's one consistent thing? Storage.
Yep.
It's storage. Like it's
there you go.
So I gave in to the demand and went with the storage team.
Nice.
I guess.
I gave in and threw myself on top of a bevy of APIs. So yeah, I'm the Kubernetes person. So yeah.
There you go. That makes total sense to me. All right. So okay, so how does this flow? Do you want to walk through some stuff? Like I usually give like an overview. Do you know what MCG is?
I've never seen it in use. I've heard of it. I've never seen it actually.
So why is that? People, I hear that a lot. Okay. So normally, like I do a lot of workshops with people. Like they go. I don't know if you've seen the OCS workshops, but there's also OpenShift workshops. You can kind of get your hands dirty before you make decisions. And I like to level set a little bit. So you know this, but for anyone who might be listening. So here's the world of OpenShift, right? Mm-hmm. And then you install the OCS operator, so you get much smaller there. And within this bubble, most of that is going to be Ceph, right? And then this little tiny piece over here, that's going to be MCG. So OCS is actually responsible for two things: Rook Ceph and the multi-cloud object gateway upstream named Nuba.
Okay, got it.
Okay, so there's your connection, right? So Ceph is like awesome, and
Ceph is great, right? Like it's
going to solve so many of your storage problems. Like there's a ton of stuff going on with Ceph, but the mindset in MCG is a little different. So, and I think it's worth explaining because I think it helps. And then you go, I see why they're doing it this way. Like so bear with me for a second. Like when you have a multitude of problems that are directly related to storage, you need to expand, and you need file, you need block, you need auto, you know all this stuff. That's your Ceph stuff, right? Mm-hmm. But if you have some very particular situations where you're going to do stuff between multiple clouds, or maybe you're in one provider, but you've got a ton of object stores to manage or something along those lines, that's what MCG is. So
okay.
I see stuff as more like a Swiss Army knife that's going to solve all of these problems. MCG is more targeted. It's does that make sense? Like,
no, I mean, I can totally see somebody having like object storage here, object storage there, object storage on-prem, and it's just like, let's manage all that. That's a good idea.
Right. So I was thinking about, like, when I explain this to people, I'm like, okay, so, OpenShift and Kubernetes, you have container orchestration. And within OCS, you have storage orchestration. And there are many tools you're going to use to achieve storage orchestration. So if you're dealing with multiple providers, and when I say provider, I include on-prem. Like, to me, on-prem is just another cloud.
Yeah, it's just another block of.
It's just another block of whatever. So, so let me give you a few scenarios. So if you are all in one provider only, and you need your file and block, and you've got stuff running, and you need object, it's already there for you. If you're not moving it around too much, and you don't have an unmanageable object storage situation, then you just use stuff. Like, it's there. That's what it does. It does it well. If you are like some of the customers I've spoken to in 4 clouds, 2 clouds, or or commonly on-prem and AWS, that is a very common situation.
Yeah.
And maybe in the past you ran different workloads, so you didn't need the same data set, but that is changing because of outages, because of costs, because of whatever DR, like whatever you want to do. So those conversations happen more and more and more. And to get a tool that applies to that situation, you're going to need MCG. Yep. So it's very forward thinking, right? Like, most people are running different applications in different places, but that's changing. And how do you make that easy? How do you orchestrate that storage?
Right. Like, how do you know where all your stuff is? Or if there's an outage in one provider, how can you flip over to the other one?
What if you don't even flip? How do you do it seamlessly?
How do you do that even, like, without your customers noticing, right? Correct.
So again, you can use MCG for stuff that's all within one provider. Sure. But I wouldn't do it for like 2 object stores. Like, I would wait to have some critical mass to start using it. But it's, once you start to play with it, you see, like, oh, I see where this tool applies. So I don't, like, when we have these conversations, it's going to be one tool of many that you're going to use for this kind of orchestration. So do you want to dive in?
Let's do it.
That was my 30
That's a good setup,
spiel.
Right? Like, okay. It sounds like you should take this job. Okay. That was an awesome setup.
Well, because mindset matters. Like, I just want to say, like how how you think. Because once I started to get the right mindset, I was like, oh, I totally understand this so much better now. Okay, hang on.
Absolutely.
All right, I'm sharing my desktop.
The joys of screen sharing. All right, I see.
So how does it look? Does it look okay? Yep. Okay. All right. So,
but like the console is very tiny text. So I'll just.
Okay, hang on. Yeah. Okay.
What
is it in Chrome?
It's still Command Plus, I think.
Oh, is it? Okay. No, that's too big.
Whoa, that's too big. Okay.
I don't want to make it. I have to.
One higher. Just
one higher.
There you go.
You like it?
Yep.
110%. Okay. All right. So before I show you all that business, okay.
And if you're watching, if you need it bigger, let us know.
Yeah. By all means. I can't see anything anyway, so I always need font bigger. Okay. So I'm going to start you. I'm not going to install the cluster. I'm going to show you, because it takes too much time. Right. And that's what Chris Blum covers.
Yeah.
So, right.
We've covered the installation of OCS on this show before. Yes.
Okay. So that part's already done. And I've already brought up my cluster. This is all 4.6, by the way, just in case anyone's wondering. And we can go look at it, but nothing out of the ordinary here. I just wanted to show you that it was actually done. And let's go look at the backing source. So again, coming back to the MCG mindset and the idea that you're going to connect to more than one provider, what are you going to need to connect to your provider? What are the details you're going to need?
I'm going to need some credentials, some API keys, maybe, right? Like,
absolutely, right? Yeah. And in the case of like something like AWS here, I named everything after you, Chris. I hope.
Oh, thank you. I thought it was Chris Blum, but yeah.
So your backing stores in this case are always going for MCG are going to be, all right, I need to connect to this bucket over there. What do I need? So they do a bunch and they predefine like endpoints and things like that for you, but you still have to provide the actual credentials. So I did one for you. If you scroll down, so here are the different types that a backing store can have. This one happens to be AWS.
Beautiful.
And I had a secret created for you already. I'm not going to reveal it.
Yeah, please don't.
But
but there it is, right? Like,
but there it is. And keep in mind, one of the things that I also do here. Sorry, we're in the secret. Let's go back for just a second. Hang on. Can I see it from here? I wanted to show you. Yeah, sorry. The target bucket. So clearly, I can have multiple backing stores to AWS. Under the same credentials or different credentials, my choice, right? As storage person, data engineer person, and multiple target buckets, right? So each one of them becomes a backing store. So I always think of these as ingredients. These are my ingredients. That's one. And then I did another one also named after you, so I wouldn't forget it. Hang on, here. So I go out to Azure and I'm using a different bucket, using my Azure credentials, that kind of thing. So you can do, did I scroll down all the way? You can do other kinds of backing store types, including something local like a PV pool, or something S3 compatible. Like if you're just running something else and you don't know what it is, you can provide it. But this is more the storage side. These are the ingredients that the chef is going to put together in the recipe and give to the developer. Beautiful. So I just wanted, and IBM at the bottom, of course. So so back here, I've got my 2 backing stores defined. This one down here is created by default. We can use it, but I don't feel like using it. But I just wanted to name things after you. So is there anything I want to show you guys in creating? No, I think I showed it all to you.
I mean, it's pretty simple, yeah.
Yeah, it should be pretty straightforward, although you'd be surprised how many people ask. And okay, so you've got your backing store. In bucket class, you're going to say how I want to use those stores, those backing stores.
Interesting, okay.
Right, so it's a recipe. I've got my ingredients. How am I going to use them? Well, you might, so for instance, I don't know if it shows you here. No, it doesn't show you here. So let me show you in my favorite. Let's pretend we're creating a new one. Okay, so MCG is going to take you through data placement, right? I'm going to call it Chris Bucket 2, maybe. And then it's going to ask me a bunch of questions. So this is where MCG gets really interesting. Inside of MCG, there are 2 kinds of buckets that you can create. One is a namespace bucket, which we'll talk about in a little bit. That's about data federation. And the other one is they call it an object bucket, object store, object bucket, but it's really a virtualized bucket where you get to set how you're going to use these backing stores. So this is interesting, and I'll show you why. So I'm creating this recipe called a bucket class and saying, I want to set the tier 1 policy type. I'm going to get 2, and I get to determine, is this going to be a spread across many multi-cloud resources, or am I going to mirror? So in the case of mirror, for the sake of demoing, it's not really that different. And I can add another tier if I want to. Let's do let's do a spread maybe if we're paranoid. You can get really paranoid about this. So look here, select at least 2 backing store resources. So I select them. That's for my mirror. And down here, I'm going to select this one. And it goes, so I'm actually tiering, like, there's a name for it called data safety, right? Okay. So I'm tiering it. I'm saying underneath this bucket I'm going to create, it's going to look like an S3 bucket. It's going to be totally S3 compatible to the developer. But behind the scenes, everything's actually going to be either spread across all the resources or mirrored across them. And MCG is going to handle that part for you. You don't even know it. You have no idea.
Nice.
So
I like the fact that it abstracts away the complexity from me.
Well, it's storage orchestration, right? So it's got to do that. Like that's something it has to do. So if we go and create this bucket, watch, this probably won't work. So you see my 2 tiers here. I've got a mirror and a spread. Really, this is for paranoid people. So here's your second bucket. So that's what it's going to do. But remember, it's going to use the resources that we define back in the backing store. It's going to use Chris AWS and Chris Azure. So that's how this kind of thing looks. Why do you care about all this? Well, I'll show you. So I like to take this to completion. Like I mean, we could stop here about this, but I don't want to. I want to show you a few things. So one thing I want to show you is, have you guys done, we could do it again. Have you done object claims? Have you done the dynamic provisioning?
I don't recall.
Okay,
no,
okay, so let's do it.
I don't think so.
Cool. Okay, so All right, object bucket claims. This is kind of cool stuff. So again, back to storage orchestration. Ideally, developers don't want to deal with storage in any way, right? They don't really want to deal with anything beyond a PVC, and I don't blame them. So we needed something on the object side. So this idea behind the object bucket claim is that I, the developer, write something, and I am going to make a claim against some object bucket and I'm going to I want someone else to dynamically provision it. I don't want to deal. So this actually happens. This is actually something that we can achieve here. So at this point, I've gotten my backing stores are done, and I have my bucket class. I actually have more than one. I have Chris bucket 1, bucket 2, or something like that. So cool. Here we'll go see it. So we're going to claim it, and we're going to see it pop up here. The claim pops up, the bucket pops up, this bucket that did not exist, and it's going to use that bucket class.
Cool.
I know I don't make any sense, but it'll make sense.
No. It'll make sense in a second. That's generally been my education path.
Okay. So what I want you to see here in bucket class is there's the default one. So if I specify nothing, that's the one I get. But I can actually give my developers more. Like, so here I just put mirror and spread, but imagine you could do something that says, dev or my super cheap storage or whatever you want to do. Like, you can have bucket classes to let them know this is your production bucket class. This is your staging bucket class. And then you can at least allow them to select that. And then behind the scenes, you can do what you need to do as a storage person to manage that. So hang on a second. Oh, I got disconnected. Give me another second. It takes time. Every once in a while I get kicked off. Oh, in the meantime, while that's waiting to reconnect, I will show you. Yeah, that one too. I want to show you one thing while I wait so I can reconnect. MCG is new, and not all aspects of the console are merged in.
Okay, so, fair enough.
So you'll see me flip between, and you'll see the documentation too, flip between the OpenShift console and the Nuba MCG console. So things come in, but it's new. So bear with us while we do this. If you wanted to find where the console is, you have to come up to Object Service up here and then go down here. So that's in my second tab.
Okay, cool.
It's just, it's new. What do you?
Yeah, no, I totally get it, right? Like when we first put in all the fun, Prometheus,
bells and whistles,
Grafana bits, right? Like you linked out to that. Now we're baking it into the console. It's the same process, yeah.
So this looks like a Nuba console, right? And there's when we talk about namespace buckets and data federation, I'll have to use this console exclusively. But there's one reason I want to. Here we go. Let's go here so you can see it. Okay. All right. So wait. I want to go here and show you you can see things in here. So at this point, remember I spoke about two different kinds of buckets, right? So we have what we're talking about now, which is this kind of cool data tiering object bucket. I present a virtual bucket. I get to define multiple layers behind the scenes and direct where they go. Am I mirroring? Am I spreading? And then we have namespace buckets. So in namespace buckets are fundamentally different, which is why they have a different tab here, actually. But right now I have my Chris bucket. That was it was just a test bucket I did for you. But I want you to watch here while I do this. So two things I want to show you, and this is about dynamic object bucket claims. Okay, so you see nothing, right? You see nothing behind the curtain. Nothing. Okay, so let's do I'm all set up, aren't I? Yes, I am. Okay, so if we take a look at this OBC loop, this is a loop I used ages ago. Actually, it's for filling up the volume so that the alerts go off when we want to show how cool. The alerts work.
I like this. A little chaos right now. Yeah, let's get it.
I get to show this when like the bill to Azure or AWS is a little high. I'm like, I was filling up buckets for the alert system. Okay, anyway. Okay, so what's important here? Object bucket claims. So right now, as you can see, there are no buckets, right? They don't exist.
Nary a bucket to be found.
Nary a bucket to be found. So look here. Okay, so again, naming things after you. I'm going to call it Chris Mirror Bucket, and I'm going to generate this name. But the important piece here, two pieces. Storage class is the Nuba storage class, and additional config bucket class is Chris Mirror. Okay. So remember our bucket class. We have Chris Mirror, Chris
two
Spread.
Objects that you already defined. Got it.
Right. So I don't have to put an additional config. I can leave it, and then it's just going to default to the default bucket class. But I wanted to show you how you choose these special other Nuba buckets that we've created. And this will allow your storage team to have a lot of flexibility about what they want you to use and da-da-da-da. And of course, I could change the default one as well if I wanted to. So down here is the normal stuff, okay? It's a job, it wakes up, and it does some DD stuff, right, to fill it up. But I don't know if you know this, but in object bucket claims, when you use an object bucket, it's fundamentally different from file and block, of course. But the most glaring thing is you don't mount it. It's not a POSIX file system. You're not mounting anything. If you have your credentials and you know where the endpoints are and all that stuff, you're good. That's all you need to talk to an object store.
Nice.
So when you make this claim, this object bucket claim, it's going to do some things for you. One, it's going to create the bucket. It's going to set it up with certain credentials, and it's going to put those credentials in a config map that you can use in your deployment.
Cool.
So, and you see that here. So that's all this is doing here. Like, what did you call the bucket? Da, 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 da. So it makes it very easy. Like, this is all, the developer does not need to know the credentials. They don't need to know the underlying anything. They just go, oh, my storage guy told me to use the Chris Mirror bucket class. Okay. And they're off and running. So when I run this, let's just apply this.
I love your insanely elaborate DD command there. That was awesome.
I'm sure it had a point at the time, but I don't remember what it is. Okay, so this should be, okay, so this is running. So I've got my job running. We should have seen, there, look, there's my object bucket claim. Remember, this is a blank window before,
it was empty.
Now we have it. It's empty, it's there, it's bound, and here's my bucket.
Nice.
Right. So created it for me. And we know this bucket is using a bucket class of Chris Mirror. So why I brought up the console, the other console issue is that I want you to see, sure enough, it shows up here. This is the real long bucket name. And when I go into it, I can see under objects that it's starting to write something.
Okay.
So I want to make a point of saying that Nuba writes everything encrypted by default. And they have, there are actually some videos around how they do this and when you're spreading, what happens. And there's a demo, I think it's called the Mona Lisa video, actually, where he talks about like slicing the Mona Lisa up and putting in deduplication. There's a lot to that. And they explain it better than I ever could. So if I go out to AWS and show you that bucket, you're not gonna be able to actually see the details. Here I can actually show you that it's there. But or if I go out to Azure, you're gonna see the encrypted blah blah blah. So I figured that's not as impactful as just showing you this. But it writes it out. Remember, it was tiered. So in one case it was mirroring because we chose that, and in the other case it was spreading between the two.
Okay.
All right. So as I mentioned, this is kind of cool, and this is kind of cool in a few ways. Like if you wanted to give your developers or anyone different kinds of bucket classes that achieve different things, you can. And you can think about your own environment and say, well, we just dev, QA prod, or how about we get a little more sophisticated where I say prod over here or whatever, or what if I need to go in underneath and change something from them? If I have, I can break the mirror. I can just take one of the data resources out and replace it with another one without anyone knowing. I've done this live while I was writing to it, actually. Stuff like that, it's flexibility, right? Because you virtualized it away. So that's kind of where this is going. So you see how this isn't really, it's different than stuff. It's not the same problem. I'm not trying to approach the same problem there.
Right.
So do you have any questions? Do you want me to talk a little bit more about something? And I better stop this before it gets out of control.
Yeah, you might want to put the brakes on that job real quick. So the you can mirror, you can deduplicate, you can,
so in the spread,
okay, yeah, let's talk about that, the spread.
Okay.
That's what I was
in the spread, there's a and I wish, actually I can post the slide later if you want. They do a much better job of explaining how their approach to managing spread and just managing objects that need to be deduplicated and stuff like that. So there's a erasure coding that they do. There's more than that, though. There's a ton of stuff going on. So the idea is that so I hesitate to get into it because I'm like, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to do it justice the way that he would do it justice. But yes, that if you're looking into those parts in particular, we can get into like we should do another office hour and get into the Nuba internals to talk about how that occurs and what they do about it. So Yeah, that's a whole nother conversation.
No,
with some,
and I think that's important, right? Because if I'm mirroring data, right, like of course I want the exact same bits in both places, but if I'm putting data across various buckets, I kind of need to know where all that is and kind of, figure out where I can
breaking the object apart.
That too, right? Like, yeah,
spreading it out,
doing that, like, HDFS kind of thing, right?
Well, so why do I need to write? Why would I write something? Why would I duplicate and stuff like that? So it's a great conversation. We should do it justice and actually get into those details and talk about performance and things like that as well, like what that means to do that kind of stuff. And even I have wondered, like, when you go to tier your bucket, maybe it's just paranoid people. Why would I want to do a mirror than a spread? What are the advantages or disadvantages of that? I have to think about that, like, right? Like, or I could see doing something like, maybe you on the first tier you mirror to 2 places, and on the next tier you mirror to 2 others, but then you could also just select them all on the first. So I have some questions and scenarios I need to run through about, like, okay, in what situation do I make which choice? When do I want to spread versus tier? I mean, that you understand, like, I'm like, I need to run through some failure scenarios. I need to think about, why would I put all of my data resources, all my backing stores in the first tier? What's wrong with that? So I don't know the answer to that. I actually have to go play with it a little bit more. But I like that I have the option.
there is a question from the audience, right? Like,
sure,
asking for some clarity around the term spread, right? Perhaps there are other property pages in the NUBA section of the dashboard that deal with spread policies. Could you show us that maybe?
Yeah, so hang on. So here you go. Here, I will show you.
Or just give us more idea of what spread really means, right? Like,
okay. So, well, and we can do both. Do I want to go into here? Okay. So spread is, imagine this object comes in and you're concerned about failure. Think paranoia, right?
Yeah.
I
always
like,
do with state,
going to go
right?
down. Exactly. It's going to go down. So you need to chop it up. And you need to be able to encode information about it so that you know what part is correct and what have you. So in terms of the NUBA console, you're not really seeing more details. They're just saying, how do you want to spread it? So, which is why I'm thinking, like, this could lead to another conversation where we really talk about what's involved in the spread and the pros and cons. That's really what we need to say. Like, mirroring is obvious, pros and cons, but as far as spread goes, we should probably have a conversation, like listing out, like, when would you do this and why you do it, and what are the good stuff about it and what's the bad stuff about it. So that's really it. Like, I'm like, no, there's more to it than what I'm saying here, and I don't want to. I want to get to namespace buckets.
No, let's go. Yeah. If you're like, spread is for a later discussion, fine. We can have you on again, and we can talk about
it's
spread
cool.
then.
Like, it's totally cool stuff. So here in the NUBA console, you're looking, and also I wanted to mention a lot. Almost all of this can be done through YAML, and a lot of it can be done through the NUBA CLI. But I feel for the purposes of demo, it can be better to show it this way and only do a few things in the CLI. But this actually, you can automate a tremendous amount. I just want to say that. Like, I'm just showing it this way because it presents well. So
there's one more question. How would this cope well with a very large amount of objects? At what point would this not be adequate, right? Like, what is the object
that is an
limit?
awesome question. So I don't know.
Oh, fun.
I don't know. And we've done, as you probably know, we have done some work around performance and
stuff, we performance test everything. Yeah.
So. We performance test everything. So this is in line to be performance tested. No one has asked me to do it. I'm assigning it to myself.
Fun.
Well, I think it would be, I need to be able to produce those metrics. So thank you for asking the question, because that gives me more ammunition to say, let's go do this and see what
you were asked live on TV.
There you go. TV. My
we
kids
call
don't
this
even know what
OpenShift TV. Yeah, this is the new TV, right?
New TV.
Everyone's at their computers all day, so why not inject a little knowledge in it, right?
So ideally, I would do some testing that would start to show you where the benefit starts to taper off, right? Like, so you can see, okay, after 10 billion objects or whatever, you can't do this anymore. Or this is how it looks when I spread, this is how it looks when I mirror, blah, 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 that kind of thing. So yeah, no, that makes me happy. I was showing you data placement. What else did I want to show you? So this is a spread of 1, which really doesn't make any sense, right?
Sure.
Yeah, but you can do it, but it doesn't make any sense. I can choose to spread across all of them. I can change it to a mirror, not basic kind of multi-cloud stuff. So again, if you're really only concerned with, if I had data resources, backing stores, as they're called in the console. Let's say Chris Azure this bucket, Chris Azure that bucket, Chris AWS this bucket, Chris Azure that bucket. Could I do that? Yeah. Like I happen to be showing Azure and AWS, but that doesn't mean you couldn't have all AWS buckets if you wanted to manage them this way, right? So I have a customer who's they just have sprawl. They have object store sprawl. Like they've got,
I was in that state a few months ago. I cleaned it up.
Yeah. Like, so you could see how they're thinking like, oh, wow, if we could put this in front of like our buckets and just say, you're interested in, weather information, all right, in the Northeast corridor, this is your bucket. And behind it are all these other buckets and they write to them or whatever, that kind of thing. So, and they want to manage that. They want to be able to move between providers. So I would like to go to namespace buckets. Do we want to talk any more about the regular object ones? Do you want to see some more of the Nuba console before I go to the namespace side?
Whatever. I mean, you're in charge here. We've got 27 minutes left, and
okay.
All
right. So we can do a fundamental mind shift.
There we go.
Okay. Fundamental mind shift. Namespace buckets. Okay. So I was going to ask you what you know about data federation, but just in case anyone listening doesn't know about, do you know about data federation?
There's so many words behind federation, right? Like it's kind of a loaded term. We do that a lot in tech. But I think of federation as like you and I can work together, right? Like as far as clusters go, right? Or, any object within the cluster, right? Like we're federated so you can do these jobs across these clusters, right? Like that kind of thing.
And then there's like Prometheus federation, right? Where it spreads out. And So, okay. So namespace is another loaded term, I think. So namespace buckets are the object buckets federation. And by that, I mean, it's a lot like database federation. So in databases, you present a table, a federated table, and behind the scenes, that table is going to go out to other databases or maybe multiple tables and pull them together and give you an aggregated view. This is the same. So in namespace buckets, I'm going to create a bucket that behind the scenes has lots of places I'm going to read from wherever, GCP, Azure, on-prem, whatever. And I'm just going to present you a single bucket. So you, the developer, feel like, oh, isn't it great? All this information is in this one bucket. But behind the scenes, I've got lots of things going on. So I will show you this. Let's see. So, and I do it here because I don't, if there's a way to do this in the regular OpenShift console, let me know. I don't think there is. I've done it from the CLI and I've done it from here. Okay, so again, our Chris bucket, right? Oh, it's not unique. 3. Let's do that. All right. So as with everything, remember we did this for the object bucket as well, the MCG object bucket. So you have to decide how your data is going to flow. And to do that, you need to say, where is it going? Where is it coming from, etc. So in this case, I've already defined some namespace resources, which are slightly different than the object store resources. We'll get into that in a second. But the idea here is I'm doing the same thing. I'm saying, what are my ingredients? What resources am I going to use? Let's say both of these. And that is, did you see, this is really tiny for you guys, but it's telling you, a mixture of different resource services will require require to read and rewrite the data without optimization. So if I had a bunch of AWS ones, it would be a little more optimized. It's just letting me know that because I've chosen 2 providers, it won't be as optimized. So as with all federated database tables, in this case as well, for namespace buckets, I'm reading from all these places, but I need to know where to write to. So I'm not going to write to all of these places. I'm going to read from them and present an aggregated view. But if you write to this virtualized bucket, I only write to one spot. And I get to decide where that is. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, just checking. All right, let's see. So let's say we're going to write to, doesn't matter. So I've done some demos where I change this on the fly. If I decide I don't want to write here, I want to write over there, I'm like, what do I want to do? So remember, this is a Nuba write. So in that, it's encrypted and it's underneath the Nuba structure.
Okay. Awesome.
All right, so we can enable caching. It's just a preview, but it gets in the way of demos.
Where would the caching be? It would be on the cluster, right?
It would be on the cluster.
So that would consume resources on the cluster, and you would need to.
So you need to think about whether you have to think about it, right? You have to decide, is this the right spot for it? Who's consuming this data? I would love to see some testing come up with edge cases, right? When we're running little tiny clusters way out there, and there's like OCS is running and compact.
Good point,
and you do
right?
caching.
Like,
wouldn't that be nice?
Connectivity caching, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Absolutely. So that maybe someone's doing it. I don't know, but I'd like to find out about that. So here I have this bucket. It's got 2 namespace resources, and I just wanted to show you what they are. They're down. I did MCG bucket. Here we go. So I define them here. Again, they're kind of different than the storage resources, but I define them here, and they're ingredients. And my definition of my bucket is the recipe, and I want to be able to use this. So when you do a federated bucket, so as you see, Azure AWS, I wanted to, what was my point? I wanted to just let you know that just like with databases, your original tables are left alone. So, so here's a great scenario for this. I've made a virtual federated bucket, namespace bucket. Behind it, I have several little buckets. This is actually something that someone has used. Vendors drop things into those buckets, and from their point of view, nothing has changed. It's the bucket. It's an AWS. I always write to this bucket. I'm pushing information or whatever they have, lots of them all around, but maybe your developers need a certain view of those buckets, right? Yeah. They don't need to connect to 57 different buckets. They get a view, and that's how they use it. But in that sense, it's really very much like a database federation. You're going to leave that table alone. You're just going to present a view it over here. That table, that table, that table, that table. You leave them alone. So, so the only encryption that happens is on the right. Right, that's the only place where you see the
encryption on right. That makes sense.
Encryption on right, that kind of stuff. So what was I going to do for you? I was actually going to show it. Is this the Chris bucket that I modified? Yeah. No, I'm in the wrong space. So I do this too. See, like I'm actually in object buckets. I need to be in namespace buckets.
Cool.
Chris bucket 3. All right. Did I source my creds? I did it again. Sorry guys, choppy morning. What can I tell you?
Hey, it happens. You're the first show of the day, so that's
I hope you don't. Do you have a lot more to do? So
oh yeah, like I only have 1 hour of today that's not streaming. So yeah.
God, that's like lunch and run errands, right? Okay.
No, that's actually a meeting to discuss more shows. This is my life. I love it.
Hilarious. Okay, so it's fine. Okay, so wait a minute. I wanted to go into MCG creds. I think I have a Chris bucket somewhere. Yes, I do.
There you go. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So there it is. All right. Ooh, but you're not Chris bucket anymore. You're Chris bucket 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's do this first. There. So
cool.
What do I call it? Endpoint. All right. So this endpoint is one that MCG provides. So, and what I just did here, excuse my not getting my certificates right. That's just my own laziness. There are some other buckets left over, but we're going to look at Chris bucket 3, which should have nothing in it at this time.
Right.
I didn't put anything in it. Oh, sorry. I needed a, yeah, you see some Nuba stuff. That's my stuff. That's my old crap. Don't look at that. There's nothing there, but I can copy something. I did this earlier. Hang on. No. It was, do I have anything here I can, yeah. So I copy this test, again, not into Chris bucket. This is basic, right? And now if I look at it again, you'll see it's there. Cool. That's all. So the point is to show that it's an S3 bucket. It performs like an S3 bucket. That text file object that I just sent is going to be written to wherever we said it should be in our data placement policy. Back here, where were we? Under the bucket, right? if you want to see it, we have to go. Oh, actually, sorry, my bad. It actually shows you here. It's going here. It's going to our AWS bucket, MCG bucket 7.
Read and write. Yeah, got it.
Read and write. So who cares? But I would say lots of people. Well, I was going to, so again, this is a specialized tool, right? So if you're thinking about situations, there's something called lazy migration that this is used for, right? You can't do a massive cutover for some reason you got too much data and you want to kind of slowly pull away from what you've currently got and write to a specific area. It's used for things like that, right? You pop in a new data resource in some other place, and maybe you're moving back to on-prem, I don't know.
Right.
And then you create this virtualized bucket and this namespace bucket, and then as you're doing your writes, everyone's like, oh, I'm just writing to this namespace bucket, but in fact, they're actually writing to something on-prem. So
nice.
So yeah, like this is just flexibility, but you see how this is very specific. This is not like a general use case for any object bucket. I'm like, no, this is what I'm trying to do. I've got multiple cloud providers and I'm trying to move things around. There's tons more that I'm just not prepared to show you here, but like triggers, all the normal stuff, the limiting S3 access kind of stuff, that like all of that's in there. There's this applies to both kinds of buckets, MCG object buckets, as well as MCG namespace buckets. But my next thing to do, I will do demos that do deep dives on that. And then I will also I really want to do like some Lambda function stuff. Like I just kind of do that. That's cool. Okay. Yeah. So in that sense, like they're regular buckets. You can, whatever you're doing with other buckets, you can do with these too. You just get more control about what's happening underneath.
Right.
So. I can't see if there are questions. I can't see the chat.
So
let me know
no, everybody's liking this, right? Like, so one person asked, you know, when we get the results of the performance testing, how can I find them? And I said, subscribe here. So we're definitely going to have you back for that. We definitely want you to come back for spread, a discussion on spread. So like I've got you on tap for 2 shows right now. Okay. So
wow.
That's just based on audience feedback. So yeah.
So I have questions for the audience.
Okay, let's fire them away.
Well, so a question I have is anyone listening in a situation where they're flipping data around? Are you copying objects from one place to another, or not? Like do you know what I mean? Like do you have a situation where MCG would be useful or no?
So one of our regulars is watching right now, James Dade. He's a customer of ours and a very close friend of the show, or the channel, I should say. So I'm curious if JP Dade has some interesting use cases around what they're doing with data, right? Like, because I'm positive that they're doing backups to some place that's not their normal data center, right? Like they have a production class data center, but they're probably backing that data up to someplace else. Let's see. Marco Slater says we will be copying objects out of AWS into our own cluster soon. So yes, there's a lot of people saying like coming out of AWS into on-prem, right? Because sometimes you hit a S3 bill that's so high that it would just be cheaper to host it right here on premises. So yeah. So
and okay, is anyone offering what do they think about the object claim stuff, like dynamic object provisioning for developers? Anyone using that? Any I'm just curious, like, or is it no, you use this one, that's your bucket, that's it?
That's a good question. So there's a slight delay between us and with the audience here, so I'll wait for feedback on that. Another one of our regulars says, I'm thinking of registry replication across AWS, Azure, and on-premises OpenStack environments. So that's interesting.
That is interesting.
So like having your image replication, you know, having that backing store, you know, Quay, for example, be an MCG kind of managed thing.
Okay, so wait, so then that registry's backing store is not going to be on Ceph?
I would think. Like
it's going to get.
Okay, so he says exactly. That's probably. No, it's not on Ceph, right? So like.
Okay.
So they're consuming. Okay, I got a response from JP Dade. It's really complex.
It's all...
Detective Conan Kudo. He's not using Ceph right now and would like to replicate his image registry. I'm assuming you mean image registry when you say registry. across all these environments so people can use them like locally, right? Not having to call home for something,
Sure.
decreasing latency, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
He says yes. Okay, cool. So JP Dade's scenario, he is siloed in NetApp, deduped in a Veritas net backup appliance, and then it goes somewhere, ... That is the storage team, ... I think it goes to Coop. I don't know what Coop is, COOP. Is it? I don't know what that is, but I know it is done, but it is not my problem.
But that's where you want to be. Yeah,
right.
Like that's exactly what you want. It's done. I don't care. It doesn't bother me so much, right? Okay.
Yeah, I don't think they use many tapes anymore. They do it electronically. So like that backing storage team, this is the product for them, right? Because if they want to encrypt their data into S3 or some S3 compatible thing, Coop is the DR site. It's a federal term. Okay, cool. Okay. So like that DR site might need a DR too, right? Like,
all right, so there's like DR stuff in the new OCS version and in versions coming. Has Chris talked to you guys about any of that? I'm sure he will.
He will, I'm sure.
It's all like super hot. So as you can see with MCG, you would just mirror, like it's already there. Like it's not a snapshot that happens occasionally, right? It's like you're going and it's going to manage the two writes, that kind of thing. If you're doing a regular object bucket from an MCG object bucket, and it just depends on how, like, it's a tool. It depends on how you want to use it. It's got some very specific use cases. So if you were going to migrate to MCG and the way MCG writes, and you want to do like a lazy migration, you would back to on-prem. Let's say you come up with it, you create a namespace bucket, you define the underlying resources to be something on-prem that you're going to write to, and then you have all the ones you're going to read to, and then you tell everybody, hey, use this bucket. When you just, especially your storage people, you can be like, just use this bucket.
Right.
And then when they do, it'll slowly start, every time a write comes, it comes to something you define on-prem. So that would be a lazy migration.
But this like if you're consuming like a NetApp appliance and all the fun things around creating an S3 API, you can do that, right? And you could totally just hide the fact that it's a NetApp thing and just tell all of your developers, right? Like, it's S3 compatible, here you go, right?
And that's all you need to know, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Which is really nice, actually. And here's where you get your creds from when you create an object bucket claim, or here's your endpoint and here are the creds that your team uses or whatever. Here's your token kind of stuff. Anybody saying anything interesting? Any more questions? We got performance.
Oh, there's always interesting things. JP Dade says we are going to AWS for some instances. That is on my plate, along with 6 other different things. I don't do storage or DB or programming. I have the hardware to configure, the clusters to build, and AWS to manage. So, and then Narendev, who's another regular, says, well, data is the real pain point. I'll let the storage team do all the heavy lifting. I'll stick to dev, Kates, and GitOps. Right. So again, this is a way for your storage teams. Why don't you invite them on this call sometime?
Or you could say, if you go to them and say, I'm your developer. If you want me to bother you less, why don't you think about this? No, I mean, I like the dynamic object provisioning buckets. That's pretty awesome. That would be really nice. If I had been able to say to my teams and just say, okay, here's your bucket class. And I can then decide where that actually is going to go instead of everyone fighting for space on the NetApp and doing migrations over the weekend. I've done those.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like, it saves people from having to do heavy lifting in bad times, right? Like, oh my gosh, our NetApp is failing. We need to get the data off of it or something like that. Don't worry, it's already been duplicated over here somewhere.
Right, because
and that could be another cluster of some sort that sits on your premises, right? Like,
correct, right.
Some kind of storage array, whatever you want, right? So yeah, JP Dade, instead of shoving things off to AWS, maybe you shove them off to Nuba and let the MCG handle the rest.
Which means your storage team deciding where they want things to go and being able to change. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, normally your developer wouldn't see any of this. This goes to your data engineer guy. This goes to those people. And I think it's one tool of many. This is not going to be the only thing you have for your object stores. Clearly, you're going to have plenty of other stuff, but certainly if you've got a mess, this is something that would help you start to get the mess organized. And as you mentioned, like you can end up, there was one customer I spoke to, I think they had stuff in the thousands, object stores in the thousands over, and blobs and things like that. And it was just getting out of hand. Like no one knew where anything was. And then they had to create an index to figure out where everything belonged. And I was like, that's terrible. Don't do that. So hopefully it's a cleanup tool. Maybe we can see it as that. Is anyone interested? Anyone doing Lambda functions and triggers? Is there? I mean, I want to do a demo on it because I find it interesting, but maybe no one else really cares. I'm just curious.
I mean, we have 8 minutes left, and JP Dade says he is using Lambda functions, I believe. So yeah.
Okay. All right. So I mean, that would be another. So performance, spread, and maybe some of the other features that we have here. Cool. All right. This makes me happy. All right, I got good stuff. I can go back to my team and say, come on, let's do this.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, first should be performance. We should definitely do something around performance. And that's part of that is resources, like getting time in the lab to do such a thing. And again, guys, this is a new product. This is not, it's not as old as Ceph. It's not. It's fairly new as things go. So the space is going to evolve in a fun way. I think it's going to be really cool. So, yeah.
JP did.
Do I get to come back?
You get to come back. You have passed the test.
Thank you.
It wasn't a test. You've done so well, and so many people have so many more questions, and we're running out of time. So we need to have you back, right? Like,
okay, all right. So what do you know? Do we write them down? Do you want to send them to me afterwards so I can like pick some that are really juicy to talk about? Or
we kind of have we use Discord, and all the live stream chats are aggregated there. So I will copy everything from this session and send it to you, and you can kind of pick and choose how you want to rack and stack things. How about that?
Okay. All right. You got it. Awesome. Terrific.
So yeah. What is OBC?
Object Bucket Claim.
Yeah, exactly. So an object bucket claim is a Kubernetes term. It's not just a Red Hat thing. We did a storage patterns for Kubernetes for Dummies book, apparently.
Really?
A little while ago. Yeah. Aaron Boyd, Sagewell, Karina Angel. Yeah, they all put together this ebook.
Okay, so when I didn't show originally, when I was showing you the object bucket claim before, I showed YAML instead of this, because here, notice you cannot assign the bucket class, right? So here it is in the console, and am I in demo? No, yeah, I got it back. I'm not at, where was I? I just have to go in here for a second. Okay, so this is the same thing. This is the YAML that will do the same thing, except this time down here, I get to say additional config Chris Mirror.
Oh, cool.
That I don't know why this isn't here yet. I assume it will show up at some point, but it's not. So I thought that was, I mean, you need to know, like if you're going to go through the trouble of defining a different bucket class so that, oh, this is a mirror, this one's a spread or whatever, you need to be able to, I need to show you how to put that in the claim, so you know which one you're choosing. So what does this have? This has, so this just gives you the default, when really you need to be able to say, you could go edit the YAML. You could do that if you wanted to. You could add in stuff, right? It would, and then you would just cut and paste this in, this piece. So does the person understand that the object bucket claim is going to go create the bucket and give you credentials so that you can use it? That's the big deal about it. And we can do this dynamically, or you can have some static ones and then claim them too. So it's useful. I could see having like a pool kind of ready for developers to just say, claim it and use this bucket class. And that bucket class is maybe, the cheaper stuff or something like that. However, a storage guy wants to define it. So any more questions?
There's chatter. Hi,
everyone.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. So OBC, Kate's is standardizing the OBC model in a new model called Cozy. There's some questions around that. I mean, that's kind of in the works still, last I heard.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know enough to talk about it, but I should know. That could be another thing we can discuss in the future. And so there's the K8s, like standardization, stuff like that, but there's also, obviously, with something dealing with multiple clouds, MCG has the task of staying up to date with all of the different APIs and being native, right? So there's a native JSON. So that yeah, like you have to expect that if you're connecting to different people. Obviously, I don't think S3 is going to have any major changes, but it happens. And certainly, I think Google dropped, I could be wrong on this. I thought they were doing something with dropping full S3 compatibility, like something they used to do that they're dropping now, and you have to go use their native way. I don't know. I'm probably making that up. Am I making that up? So
I don't know. I haven't heard.
But that should be MCG's job, right? Right. If something changes, MCG comes out with an update. You do the update, and now you can talk to that provider again. That should be how that flows. So lots of changes, lots of moving parts, for sure.
Cool. No, great show. I think there's plenty here to. OBC was initiated by us at Red Hat and pushed to Kate Sig storage as a standard. Good thing. Yeah. So then the community's going to go and.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. So yeah, the community is going to expand upon that as always, right? Like we're seeing the same thing with pod security policies happening, right? Like they're going away and going to be replaced by something at some point. And don't worry, folks, they're not going away until probably next year. So yeah, about Quay on MCG from before, configuring the Red Hat container open storage. Oh, there's actually an Access article on that. Wow, cool. Thank you, Gummer.
Oh, even better. Okay.
I don't know who Gummer is in chat, but apparently they work at Red Hat. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. No, it's good.
Yeah, this is actually configuring Red Hat OpenShift storage for Red Hat Quay. It talks about MCG for that. So yeah, good call. Thank you, Gummer, for sharing that. Who had that question about registries? That was, I think,
Detective something.
Yeah, Det Conan might be doing the registry thing. So check out that link from Gummer there, and that'll send you on a good way. Yeah, people like this. People enjoyed this session, so they want you back.
Oh, good. I'm glad. I will definitely come back with more fun stuff. We'll see when Chris needs a break. When Chris blows me.
Well, I mean, we can bring you both on, right? Like, okay. So Gummer is Guy Margalit, originally from Nubo, now at Red Hat Emerging Tech. Yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you, Gummer. Appreciate you joining. So. Yeah, definitely a lot of good chatter too, like between folks talking about their problems. So yeah, this is cool. Thanks for the session, and looking forward to more MCG and RGW usages and when to use one or the other. Aha, that's a good one. Yeah. All right, cool. So
much.
This has been great. I have to jump to another show, which is coming up in just a minute. It is talking about the new free developer sandbox for OpenShift, where you can kick the tires on stuff like this, I would imagine. I don't know if you can install OCS on our sandbox clusters. I don't think so. It's probably a little small. But this is awesome, and we would love to have you back, Michelle. Thank you so much.
You got it. Thanks, everyone.
Have a great one, and see you here in a few minutes.
Okay. Bye.